Many years ago, in a beautiful city of Media, there lived a very wealthy man named Chef Donatus. Chef Donatus had chains of businesses scattered all over the country. However, Chef Donatus was a widower. His wife, who had stood by him through thick and thin, had died while giving birth to the last son. Chef Donatus was so heartbroken that he vowed never to remarry until at least his three sons finished secondary school. So, Chef Donatus stopped traveling. Frequently, he would spend some more time with his sons. Donatus has three sons named Kenny, Ogo, and Oke. And despite the fact that he was very wealthy and had several aides and people working for him, Donatus was very intentional about raising his sons. He would drive them to school every morning. Even though he had drivers who could easily do that, he always made sure to come back from work early enough so that he could have dinner with his children. He also created time, despite his busy schedule, allowed him to take his boys swimming or sometimes to the field to play football with them. Donatus was very intentional about raising his sons. So things continued like this between Donatus and his three sons. 15 years later, Donatus' sons Kenny, Ogo, and Oke had grown into young men and were now all in the university. Donatus was very proud of himself for how he raised his children, and he was also very proud of himself for keeping to his word of not remarrying until his sons had grown and come of age. Donatus felt that since he was done raising his children, it was time for him to get a wife, a beautiful woman who would take care of him and look after him. So Donatus' search for a wife began. And after a few months, he finally found a woman who wanted to marry. Her name was Chisum. Chisum was very pretty and very young. As a matter of fact, she was 20 years younger than Donatus. But Donatus did not care because that was exactly what he wanted. A young and a vibrant lady that would keep his blood pumping. A few months later, Chef Donatus got married to Chisum in a lavish traditional wedding ceremony. Also, his sons could not attend because they were in school and writing their exams. Chisum was so happy to be the wife of a very wealthy man. Just like that, Chef Donatus, on the other hand, spoiled her silly. He showered her with so much money and so much love. He even bought a new car for her, allowed her to hire 2 personal assistants to do her bidding. Chisum was literally a pampered, stay-at-home wife who simply came to spend Chef's money. Chef was so happy, and in turn, she took very good care of him, cooking healthy, delicious meals for him and also satisfying him in the other room. Chef Donatus was also very happy, so Donatus and Chisum continued to live happily. A few months later, Chef Donatus' sons were on break and they all came back home to see their father. And that was when they all met their father's new wife, Chisum, for the first time. Kenny, who was the eldest, was very shocked at the young lady his father had married. When he heard that his father was getting married, he imagined that it would be someone in his father's age bracket. But to see a vibrant, succulent, beautiful, feminine young lady was quite shocking. He wasn't prepared for this at all. Chisum was also very shocked. She wasn't prepared to have a very handsome and young man who was also in her age bracket was a stepson. There was nothing. Stepson was a full-bodied, able young man. Chief Donatus, on the other hand, was just so excited to reunite with his boys again. The holidays were going on just fine. However, Kenai couldn't help but stay at home with her father's wife a second time. Each time she passed, she was very beautiful. She was Kenai's full spec. She was slim and pretty, and she wasn't helping matters either. She was scantily dressed close around the house, exposing her thighs and voluptuous breasts, and this got Kenai aroused each time he was around her. At night, Kenai would lay away under his bed, thinking about Chisum. He wanted to have her. He wanted just a taste of her. But he knew that this was wrong by every standard. For God's sake, that was his father's wife, as in his stepmother. Kenai was very frustrated. He was battling within himself for lusting after his father's wife, John. On the other hand, was also feeling very uneasy, where she was at night when she lay on the same bed with her husband, Chief Donatus. Her mind would wander, thinking and lusting after her husband's son, her stepson. Her body craved a taste of a young, vibrant, able-bodied man, not the old man lying beside her. She knew that it was wrong, but she vowed that she was going to have him no matter what it may take. So, Chisum became much more intentional. Usually it was the maids that served the brothers. Kenai will go and order meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But whenever Chief Donatus was not around, Chisum would carry Kenai's food and come and serve him while bending down strategically to expose her breast. Sometimes she would also pretend to drop something in front of him and then bend down seductively to pick it up. Kenai knew exactly what she was doing. For crying out loud, he was a happening young man and knew all these antics. He knew that his father's wife. He was inviting him to share her bed with her. After a few days, Kenai could no longer control himself around his father's wife. Every second, his thoughts were on her. He always imagined himself sleeping with her. Kenai knew that if he continued to stay in that home, it was only going to be a matter of time before he acted on it. So, one day he walked up to his father and came up with an excuse to go back to school, then packed his bag and left the house. But when Chisum learned that her stepson Kenai had gone back to school, she was visibly upset and disappointed. However, she decided that not even that was going to stop her from sleeping with Kenai. So a few days later, she walked up to Ogo, Kenai's immediate younger brother, and said, "Ogo, can you give me your brother's number? I need to confirm something from him." Chisum said with a smile on her face, and Ogo innocently went ahead to give her the number. Kenai was in his hostel one evening when he started receiving several messages. When he opened them, he was shocked to see messages from his stepmother. She was sending several text messages prophesying her undying love for him. She even went as far as sending him her nude pictures. Kenaya was frustrated. What kind of temptation is this? Should she have left the house for him? Why is she sending me crazy pictures? Kenaya said aloud to himself, looking troubled. He decided not to respond to any of her messages. However, a few days later, Chisum was still flooding him with pictures and messages. It was only a matter of time before Kenny began to respond to those messages. As much as he knew it was wrong, he still wanted to have a taste of what he was seeing. So he began to chat with her even more frequently. In a couple of days, they graduated from just chatting to talking over the phone, home for several hours. Chisum was so happy, and in a matter of weeks, Kenny was back at his father's house. His father was very surprised to see him and said, "Hey Kenny, you are back again? I thought school was in session. Besides, your younger brothers just went back to school. So what are you doing here?" Chef Donas was asked, looking very shocked. "Well, Dad, the faculty gave us a week break to do a short project. So I decided to come home and do the project so that I can concentrate and give it my best. You know that I am in my final year now, so I have to put in my very first effort." Kenny replied convincingly, and his father believed him. Over the next few days, Kenny and Chisum, whenever they were alone, began chatting and hanging out together in the house. Before they knew what was happening, Kenny and Chisum had begun sleeping with each other. Each time Chef Donatus went to work, his wife and his son would begin playing like kids, giggling and laughing, and sometimes they would even end up sleeping together on Chef Donatus' bed. Even the maid had seen them together a few times. After a few days, Kenaya went back to school, and his relationship with Chisum, his stepmother, blossomed even more. Sometimes Chisum would even travel all the way to Kenaya's school, and they would lodge in a hotel for days. Kenaya even went as far as introducing Chisum, who was his stepmother, to his friends. Things continued like this until Kenaya graduated from the university. After Kenaya graduated, he pretended to be very interested in family business and went back home instead of taking a regular job elsewhere. Donatus was very happy when his son Kenny expressed his interest in joining the family business because he never believed that a child should be forced to join it. So he welcomed Kenny with open arms. Kenny began to follow his father to work every single day. But unbeknownst to Chef Donatus, the main reason his son joined the business was to be closer to his wife, Cheese. So, Cheese and Kenny continued to date under Donatus' nose. Yet, he remained unaware. Even though by this time most of the housemates knew, as they had seen them sleeping together on several occasions. One day, Kenaya and Chisum went out to a restaurant together. Kenaya looked at Chisum and said, "Chase, let us run away and get married. Please leave my father. He does not deserve you. I can take very good care of you. I work with my dad now, so I can embezzle enough money for us to run away and start a new life in a new city," Kenaya said very passionately. She replied, "I mean, please, I'm completely in. As you see me, I'm tired of warming an old man's bed. I need a young, vibrant man like yourself. Chisum said, laughing, and so, from that day, they began meeting more frequently to come up with their perfect escape. A few weeks later, with the help of some of his father's staff who had settled and bribed, Kinayo was able to seize 7 million naira from his father's company. One day, they waited for Chief Donatus to go to work, and then Kinayo and Chisum ran away. They packed all their belongings and then 70 million naira and relocated to Lagos. Kinayo and Chisum were very excited. Meanwhile, later that day, Chief Donatus came back home from work only to find the house, his son and wife were nowhere to be found. Just a maid. So he called one of the maids and said, Anda, where is my son and my wife? Why is this whole house empty? Chief Donatus asked, Sir. Anda replied, which one is I asked a very simple question and you hear stammering. Chief Donatus replied, looking very worried. Then Anda answered and said, they don't travel. They left the house together this morning with their bags. I'm not sure they will come back. Oh, Anda replied. Chief Donatus don't ask, looking very scared. Lover, my own wife and my son? You must be joking. Chief Donatus replied as he stormed off. He went to his room, opened his wife's wardrobe only to see that it was actually empty. It had been swept clean. Then he went to his son's room too and also noticed that his wardrobe was empty. As a matter of fact, the room was looking very deserted. By this time, Chief Donatus was already feeling anxious. He hoped and prayed that it was not what he thought it was. Then, just to be sure, he went over his security room to check the camera, only to get the shock of his life. His son, his first son, and his wife had been frolicking around under his roof for a very long time. Chief Donatus did not know when he burst into tears. Kenny, how can you do this to me? After all that I have sacrificed for you, of all the women in the world, why did you choose to sleep with my wife? Chief Donatus, after all that I have done for you, my wife and my son, you both have killed me. Chief Donatus wailed loudly over the next few days. He locked himself in his room, crying and weeping profusely. The maid stayed in the kitchen, gossiping about her boss and what his son and wife had done to him. They all felt very bad for him because Chief Donatus was very good to them and did not deserve to be treated the way he was. Chief Donatus felt very sick because of how his wife and his son had betrayed him. He was so sick that he had to be hospitalized. At this point, the doctor had to contact his two younger sons, Ogo and Oke. Ogo had already finished writing his final exams, so they both rushed back home to see their dad. Upon seeing their dad in the hospital bed and hearing all that their older brother and stepmother had done, they were very upset with their brother. Ogo tried calling his older brother and stepmother, but both of their numbers were not reachable. Meanwhile, Kinayo and Chisum continued to enjoy their lives together. They had settled down in Lagos and were already having the time of their lives. They had not yet started any business with the money that Kinayo had, simply passing days from clubbing and living the Lagos lifestyle. They did not feel a single remorse for what they had done to Chief Donatus. Chief Donatus, on the other hand, was not getting any better. It had already been 3 months since he was hospitalized due to the heartbreak he suffered. Yet he was not responding to treatment despite the doctor's best efforts. A few weeks later, Chief Donato's heart could not take it any longer and he died. Ogo and Oke, his two younger sons, broke down in tears, weeping profusely. Yet again, they tried to reach their older brother Kenai, but his number was not reachable. Kenai and chastened their lives, enjoying themselves. However, 2 years later, Kenai fell sick. Initially, he thought it was just something minor and went to the hospital, but he realized that he was not getting any better despite several hospital visits and undergoing several tests showed that the doctors could not determine what the problem was. And soon enough, he began to spend most of the money he had stolen from his father on medical bills. Kenayo was very sad initially. Chasen was very supportive, but after a while, she grew tired of Kenayo's illness. This was not what she had bargained for at all. So one day, she stole the remaining money that Kenayo had taken from his father, Chief Donatos, and fled to start her life anew. When Kenayo found out, he was heartbroken and wept all day. Here he was, battling with his health, and now Sham had left him and taken all the money he had stolen from his father, leaving him with no way to even afford. Kenayo was so sad he wondered why his life was going so badly. So he decided to start going to churches for prayers to see if God would heal him and take away these strange elements. That the pastor revealed to him that his father had killed him after what he did and that he needed to go back home and beg for forgiveness. By his son was so desperate that he packed up what was left on his belongings and traveled back home. But upon getting to his father's house, the security at the gates refused to let him in. So Kenai screamed angrily at the security guards and said, "How dare you? Do you know who I am? I am the first son of my father, and this is my father's house." Kenayo screamed at the man angrily, but the security man wouldn't budge, saying that he was under strict instruction from his boss not to let him in. But he continued to shout and threaten the security guard. He was literally making a scene. So Ogo, who had been observing the drama from the balcony, had no choice but to come down and see his brother. He looked at his brother and said, "Keno, what are you doing here? Please just leave. You are not welcome here." Ogo said to his brother sternly, "Are you okay? Ogo, what gave you the right to talk to me that way? Have you forgotten that I am your older brother? Besides, this is my father's house, and I am not even here to see you. So, you are not in any position to tell me not to enter my father's house. And I am also the first son, Keno." Keno replied angrily, "Did you just hear yourself? What you did to Dad, running away with his wife? You still have the audacity to show your face here? Don't you have any shame? Do you know that Daddy died of a heart attack because of what you and that useless woman did to him? Daddy is dead because of you, and you are here claiming to be the first son? Anyway, in case you don't know, let me tell you that Daddy disowned you before he died. And not just that, he disowned you the day he gave birth to you. So you are no longer our brother, and I want absolutely nothing to do with you. So please get out of my house." He screamed angrily, and then Kinayo broke down in tears. "Oh, that is dead. Oh, what have I done? What have I done?" Kinayo said really loudly, but Ogo paid no attention to him and simply walked back inside. Kinayo had nowhere to go. He also had no money on him, so he just left and began to wander the streets. He did not have any money to manage his sickness, as Chisum had left him penniless. So he began to sit by the roadside, begging for money just to eat. Kenoyo became a street beggar, and he was still very sick. He was not getting better. Sometimes he prayed and wished to die, but this refused to take him. Meanwhile, Chief Donato's third son later graduated and joined the family. Businessman, he and his brother Ogo went ahead to get married, start their own families, and raise children. Ogo and his brother managed the family's business well, and they were very prosperous. Chisum, on the other hand, had found another wealthy old man to marry and exploit, just as she had done to Chef Donatos. Kenny was so sad. He was filled with remorse and wished he could turn back the hands of time. But it was too late. Hi friends, it's me again. Thank you so much for watching my story to the end. So, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. So, do you think is at fault here? Is it Chisum or Chief Donatos shouldn't Chef Donatos have known better life? Why would he marry such a young lady, knowing that the lady is within the same age range as his son? It's more or less like saying, how do you buy a goat and buy a yam and put a goat and yam together and not expect the goat to eat the yam? So, do you think is at fault in this whole education? Is it Donate for marrying such a young lady, bringing her home? Or is it Kenny for sleeping with his stepmother? Or is it Chisum for sleeping with her stepson? Please share your thoughts with me on the comment section. And please support my channel by subscribing to and liking my videos and sharing with your loved ones. So now, until I come your way again with more interesting stories, bye!